All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Renee Miller. I'm the program director at the Oregon Bioscience Incubator, and we are super excited to have this lunch and learn on women in leadership in honor of Women's History Month in the month of March and International Women's Day last week. This program aims to explore solutions to break the bias and work toward a gender equal world. As we get started today, as always, I'm going to read a land acknowledgement. Otrati would like to acknowledge the land we are all on, wherever we may be. Otrati conducts business throughout Portland and beyond, and is making an effort to acknowledge the history of the area and work toward decolonization of the bioscience industry. Portland rests on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who have made their homes along the Columbia River. So please join us in acknowledging the land we're all on throughout Portland and beyond. To learn more about Portland's native, diverse, and vibrant community, please read Leading with Tradition, a document created by the Portland Indian Leaders Roundtable, and there will be a link to it in the chat. Today's program is sponsored by Cambia Health Solutions, and we truly appreciate their sponsorship of the program. And today we have with us Brooke Cowan. She's the Director of AI Engineering at Cambia Health Solutions, and she is going to introduce herself. So Brooke, are you ready to go?
Yes, thank you, Renee. Great, thank you, everyone. I am really excited to be here today and honored to be representing Cambia at this Lunch and Learn. Such an impressive group of panelists. I took some time, read over all the bios, and just have been hearing about some of the questions, and it's really exciting to be here at this event. So just a little about me. I've been at Cambia for just over 5 months, and I lead the AI and data science team there. Our team has about 25 people, analysts, product managers, machine learning scientists, and engineers. It's a very diverse group of creative people who are committed not only to learning, but also united by a love of AI and also by Cambia's cause, which you can see in the slide. And I think if I were to sort of remove the love of AI part, that'd probably actually be a pretty good description of everyone at Cambia. It's very committed to learning and a great group of diverse people. So one of the things that drew me to Cambia and convinced me to join is the company's commitment to innovation. And one of the ways that the company is making changes is through the application of machine learning and AI. So I don't know how many of you know Cambia, but Cambia is really committed to making the healthcare experience simpler for people and their families, including over 3 million people that we serve through regional health plans across Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Utah. All right, so I know not everyone here is a data scientist, but I thought it would be helpful if I shared a couple of the projects that my team is working on, just to give you an idea for how we think about innovation at the company. So one of the ways that we're using ML to improve the healthcare experience for our members is by training models to auto-approve prior authorizations. So if you think about prior authorizations, sometimes you need a medical procedure like an MRI, which can be really costly. You have to get that pre-approved from your health insurance. And sometimes that can take a few days or maybe even a week, which depending on people's situation might be quite onerous. So our models help expedite this process by learning from data what types of procedures can be automatically approved with high confidence. That not only expedites the process for those prior authorization requests that can be pre-approved, but it also reduces the load for people who manually review the remaining requests, which therefore speeds up the overall process. So that was sort of one example. Another quick one, my team is successfully applying machine learning to review and process claims. So using our machine learning models, we can more reliably identify claims that might come in too high and then surface them to our adjudicators to make adjustments, which is great for our members because it usually means that they pay less for their medical services. So those are two concrete ways that we're using machine learning to improve healthcare for our members behind the scenes. And just a little side note and shameless plug, my team is hiring a senior machine learning scientist right now. So if you know anyone who might be interested, please feel free to contact me. Just a little bit more about Cambia, which you see here in this slide. The company's headquartered in Portland, Oregon, is a tax-paying nonprofit with nearly 5,000 employees in 30 states. And the company is nationally recognized for, among other things, our culture of belonging, leading ethically, and serving our consumers responsibly. We're committed as a company to attracting top talent to serve our consumers, bringing together individuals with diverse talents, skills, backgrounds, and abilities. And just as a small data point, we received a score of 100 on the Human Rights Campaign Foundation's 2022 Corporate Equality Index, which is the nation's foremost benchmarking survey and report measuring corporate policies and practices related to LGBTQ+ workplace equality. So if you're interested, please feel free, again, to contact me or to go to our website, cambiahealth.com/careers, where you can learn more. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Renee.
Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate it. We appreciate Cambia's support of our program. Thank you. And now I have the great pleasure to introduce our panel. We have an amazing panel today. I'm going to start with Denise McCarty. She's a Senior Technology Center's Strategic Relations Manager for Autodesk. And Denise's bio says, "My passion for community building is a common thread that is woven through both my professional and personal life. I'm a convener and master dot connector. Throughout my eclectic career, I've held positions in the nonprofit and economic development worlds with 15+ years in global business development and supply chain. Outside the Autodesk office, my wife and I own and operate the award-winning McConnell's Boxing Academy. My wife, Molly McConnell, is a 2-time world champion boxer and Oregon Sports Hall of Fame inductee, making me the second best boxer in our household. Our home is filled with royalty as our 2 cats, Queen Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, rule our kingdom with an iron claw." Welcome, Denise. And next up, we have Jenn Klotz, Community Relations and External Communications Lead in Oregon for Genentech. In her role, Jenn is responsible for executing site-based giving and external communication strategies with initiatives that connect Genentech with the community. Jenn has been with Genentech for over 13 years, and in that time, she's been a member of the leadership team, the executive sponsor for employee-led diversity teams, and a leader in the community. Outside of work, Jenn is a Portland native with 2 grown sons and is a professional musician. Jenn was the recipient of the Athena Women's Leadership Award in 2019 and is passionate about mentoring women of color. Jenn gives back by volunteering for several organizations and is currently a court-appointed special advocate for teens in the foster system. Thank you for being here, Jenn. Our next panelist is Patti White, co-founder and CEO of Hemex Health. Based in Portland, Oregon at the OBI, Hemex Health has commercialized Gazelle, an affordable point-of-care diagnostic platform for users at the new front lines of healthcare. Gazelle is now used in 13 countries in over 300 locations. Patti is a serial entrepreneur with 25 years of experience in medical technology and has launched over 20 successful products. Her experience includes executive roles at Hewlett-Packard and 3 successful startup companies. Patti has an MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and a degree in international business from the University of Washington. We're so happy to have you with us here today, Patti. Up next is Susie Dunn, Chief People Officer and Chief of Staff of Zapproved. Susie is a transformational leader with deep software as a service operational expertise who aligns people, process systems, and culture to unlock high growth and high performance teams. At Zapproved, she leads HR, DE&I, legal, security, compliance, and IT, where she helps scale a collaborative, inclusive, and empowered culture where the employees, business, and customers thrive. Susie has over 25 years of experience in business operations and human resource leadership roles across small to large global companies in the technology and energy sectors. She then transitioned to software, serving at notable Portland startups Jive, Gemma, and Acton. Susie has been a trusted advisor to the Oregon software startup community, was a recipient of the Portland Business Journal's 2017 Women of Influence Award, served for many years as chair of the HR Executive Committee with the Technology Association of Oregon, was a founding board member with Innovate Oregon, and a founder of the successful PCEP intern program with Portland State University. Welcome, Susie. And now I'm pleased to introduce our moderator for today's program, Himalaya Rao. Himalaya is one of the managing directors and general partners of the Black Founders Matter Fund, which is a seed stage fund focused on highly scalable Black-led deal flow within the United States. Prior to becoming a general partner, Himalaya got her MBA and specialized training in venture finance and worked in 7 different firms as an associate, deal lead, and eventually fund manager. She is now an adjunct professor at Portland State University, teaching MBA and MSF students about venture investing. She's excited about co-launching Venture Partners, an educational nonprofit in partnership with Virtue Lab and NVCA's Venture Forward VC University. Himalaya has a passion for expanding accessibility of entrepreneurship to BIPOC and rural communities as a pathway for economic development and generational wealth building. We surely appreciate Himalaya serving as our moderator today. So let's all give a warm welcome to this outstanding panel. And with that, I'm going to stop my screen sharing and turn the mic over to Himalaya.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, Renee. I'm so excited to be here. We have such great attendance. Thank you all for joining us. I am so thrilled to be here and to be part of such an amazing group of panelists. You know, I've been on many panels, I've watched so many panels, and honestly, I think the thing that makes or break panels are the panelists and the questions. And so I am truly thrilled to see so many different types of leaders on this panel. And Renee actually shared with us the questions that some of you had submitted, and they are excellent. So let's get right into it. I'm excited for this super robust discussion. We're going to dive deep and have organic conversation. If you guys have other comments, if things really resonate with you, please feel free to put that in chat, and we'll be monitoring the chat and trying to incorporate some of those additional comments as well. So this entire panel and discussion is about trying to figure out how to remove bias, how to figure out how to, break through a lot of barriers and the glass ceiling that a lot of women face in the workplace. And so we have here incredible women leaders that are at the top of their field that have disrupted their respective industries. And so I think that really bodes well for our first question, which is around when there's no room in your specific department that you're working in or your current group, when there's no more room for you to progress, is it beneficial for you guys to stay in the organization and just move laterally? Or do you gain better experience by actually leaving the organization? And I think that we'll go right to Jenn to start off our discussion here. I know that Jenn, you have a lot of experience with this, and so I'd love to hear your perspective.
Great, thank you. I loved this question. It really, when I saw it in advance, it really resonated with what I consider my career journey. I have been at Genentech for almost 13 years, and I have actually only had 2 titles during that time, but I've probably had 13 different jobs. And that is really my experience. So what I want to start with saying is there's absolutely no right formula. This question is it better to do one or the other? It really depends on what's available to you, what you've tried to do, what barriers you've run into, and what challenges you've been able to overcome. So I don't think there's one particular formula. We all have our own lived experience. So I can just share what I experienced and what worked for me, and also where I failed when I was trying to move and develop my career. So I think the number one thing is really you own your own development. Yes, the companies are responsible, but you get to ultimately make the decision what's right and what's not for you. Like I said, had the same job title for 10 years, but for probably 8 of those years, I consistently had new and different and developing work. And that was really, there was not a lot of opportunity for me to move up. I wanted to stay with the company, and I am not an engineer. And so what my company does, a lot of the people are engineers, but that's not what my forte was. And I also strategically chose to be an individual contributor at the time. So although I lead teams, I did not lead people. So the path for me was, there was less opportunity for me to move up because I didn't want to become a people manager. So I really consistently just said, my growth is my responsibility. And I raised my hand to say yes to projects. I raised my hand to say yes to leading teams. I raised my hand to do things that were really outside of my comfort zone. And I had to accept that I may fail. And that's difficult, especially when you're trying to develop yourself. So my experience has been positive because I continue to push and align myself with people so that I could grow laterally. And what that did was create then a role for myself to move up, right? So that change happened because I created that. Not all organizations allow that kind of movement, but that was my particular experience.
That's so helpful. Thank you so much, Jen. And then Susie, do you have a similar experience? Do you have a different experience?
Mine's a little bit different. Well, I've actually experienced both. So earlier in my career, I was at a company that I loved, but I was in a role where, as I looked up, there was no room to grow. And the people that were above me, there wasn't going to be any near-term opportunity that I could see that they would be making a move. And so it was really difficult for me because I didn't want to leave the company, but I also wasn't sold that this was the exact direction I wanted to spend my career. And so I had reported into the CFO at the time, this amazing man who was an amazing advocate for me. And he said, Susie, if you really want to stay with the company, why don't you consider one of these lateral roles? It will give you great exposure. It'll really help you see what other kinds of careers are out there. And so I took on a lateral role, and it was one of the best things I could have done. And I've learned over my career to take on every lateral role that's come my direction, even ones that are a big stretch that I don't have skills and experience in. I've learned that that has always served me really well. Now, that said, that was early in my career. I have also had it happen that later in my career, where I've gone into an organization and I am in the path I want to be, where I was the number 2, and where the person above me, there was just no space, there was just no room. And while I could have moved laterally, the best move for me was a move out. And that was really trajectory changing for me. So I think same as Jen, it really depends upon where you're at in your career. I think both situations can work. It just depends upon, do you really want to stay with the company? Are you at a place where you'd really like to grow and expand, or do you want to just stay in your current track?
Yeah, and I want to just follow up, Susie. I really appreciate what you said, because I think back to that period around that 8 or 9 year mark where I was like, okay, how many more teams and projects can I be on before there's some actual movement? And I gave myself, without the company knowing, I said, the company has or have till the end of next year, because I really wanted to stay. And if something is not available to me, then I will seriously consider leaving the company. I didn't have to make that choice because that change happened during that time frame. But there is a point where you're like, okay, like you said, there's really, and I think that if this hadn't happened, I would not be working for the company at this point. I would have made a move. So there's definitely lots of opportunity to think about how you'll develop yourself that way.
What I'm hearing from both of you is that if you're in a position where you're looking for more of an exploratory pathway, if you really are looking to be able to stay with the company, then potentially a lateral move could be a good one. But you might get to the point where that might not still serve you. Denise, I saw you nodding your head. Does that resonate with you in your journey?
1000%. And I'll say that it does depend on where you are in your career development and where and what role you have currently and what company you're at. So I've experienced both of those where I knew that there was no opportunity to move up if that is your goal, is to move up in the position I was in. And there wasn't really anything laterally to kind of go back to one of the comments Jenn made. I know Jenn for a long time, and she was at Genentech, and she led some amazing projects and some amazing teams. And that really leads me into the comment that I like to make around portable skill set. You start to develop what I would call a portable skill set, and make sure you, in my opinion, what I've done is value my portable skill set. So I've taken the opportunity and lateral opportunities and leading projects or leading teams to really develop that portable skill set that I was missing, maybe that one gap in my resume perhaps, or something that I had passion around that I really wanted to sink my teeth into. And I did go off the board a little bit. I talked to Jenn, we had lots of conversations. She has an amazing, amazing government affairs team. And so I had interested in government affairs and interested in policy and legislation. And so I found an opportunity to work with that team. So I've experienced both of those. But kind of my process through my career has been to really ensure that I am developing what I would call a portable skill set.
I think one of the things, Denise, that you kind of mentioned touched upon actually something that resonated with me. A lot of times we go into like salary negotiation and we talk about like how difficult it is for a woman to negotiate their salary. And I remember a mentor coming to me and I was really upset at, like what I wasn't able to negotiate. And they said like, well, actually, like you don't have to think of this as like your permanent move. You can actually do somewhat of a boomerang where you can move to a different company, get a position and a salary that is beneficial after a few years of experience, and then come back here. Alternatively, you can utilize lateral moves, but outside of the organization, to be able to increase both your position and your salary far quicker than if you stayed at one organization. I wonder if that might be something that has like come across in any of your paths, if you felt like staying at a company was beneficial, or if you actually felt like jumping from organization to organization actually helped you advance quicker.
Oh, that's such a good question. I think there's a couple parts to tackle there. I'll take one part and then maybe hand it to one of the other panelists. I'll relate it to just a very quick story that happened to me that really framed my thought process around negotiation and salary and your worth. I was probably mid-career and having some conversation with a manager that I worked for at the time. And I worked in a global group. There was a lot of responsibility. I was managing several global companies, and it was a lot of travel and a lot of work. And this individual said to me in my review, you're the best value on the team. You're paid middle of the pack, but you do more work than anybody else, and you have better results than anybody else. And I thought to myself, wow, I have really done myself a misservice. And then I made a comment around, well, that means I can take my foot off the gas pedal, right? I'm paid middle of the pack. So should I not be able to perform at middle of the pack? Because I had signed up for almost every single project and I took every single role because I wanted to build my skill set. And at that time, I knew that this was not the career for me. This was not the place for me. I took that to heart and I really started to understand my value and my portable skill set and use that as a starting point. And whenever I think about negotiation, whether it's with a new company and I'm looking for another opportunity, or it's the company that I'm with. And so with that, I would like to ask Patti. She made a comment that she had been at HP and she's such a successful entrepreneur. And so I'm sure she has lots of experience with this certain negotiation, whether it's for your own company or your own role within a larger company.
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Denise, and great comment. And I love what Jenn said in the beginning about owning your own development. You also have to own your own worth, your own value. And I found that, the one thing is that most people, they don't always go out and ask and get the information they need, whether there were many times when I was at HP for 13 years. So, I went through a lot. I think I had 7 different jobs, and I worked, internationally and in the US. And, I never found my own job. I just went out and started talking to people, and these jobs came out because you made yourself available, you made the space. And I think the same thing goes for your worth, especially for women. Sometimes it's harder for us to go ask for the money. But, really, if you kind of wonder about it, talk to your manager, talk to other people and find out, because, I've always seen that the person you hear from is oftentimes the one that does get the extra pay because they know you care about it. You're going to watch that. And I think, just kind of owning your own career path and your own compensation is something that's important to do earlier in your career. And you can always do it in a way that's not, abrasive to people, but just say, hey, this is important to me, and I wanted to know, how can I get a bigger bonus or get paid more in the future? So just verbalizing that really means a lot.
I always say when it comes to negotiating your salary or trying to get an upgrade when traveling, they can't say yes if I don't ask.
Yeah, perfect.
Right? So I need to ask. I might get a no, but if I don't ask the question, like you said, Patti, ask the questions, understand. They can't say yes if you don't ask.
It's exactly true. And even for, even within the startup, so, I've been managing startups the last, 20 years, is that people will say, I want a different kind of experience. I'm kind of bored in my job. And even though we're a small company, we can oftentimes figure out how to move things around, give somebody a different project. But, if they don't ever talk to us, if they're just feeling boxed in and then just end up leaving, I always feel like, wow, that's such a loss that they didn't tell us what they were really thinking. Because there's a lot of power you have just in communicating.
And I think a lot of times we can have this tendency as women to negotiate with ourselves and talk ourselves in or out of things. And that's something we have to be so mindful of. And just again, Himalaya, to the question around, when is it time to go? If there aren't those internal champions and advocates, you're having these conversations and you're not making the progress, that could be the sign to you that maybe it is time to go. And just make sure, though, before you go, you're not leaping to the same issue or challenge somewhere else, that you're really looking for what is that better fit for you. Because again, that could be the trajectory changer that you need.
You actually brought up a perfect segue, but before we move into mentorship and advocacy, I actually wanted to ask you, Hazel mentioned that you are definitely familiar with and approved of the boomeranging phenomenon. And I wondered if you, like Patti, have any insight into how you've tried to retain people, within the organization.
Well, so the boomerang, thank you. And thanks to Hazel for bringing this up. The boomerang, that's the term we have for the folks that leaves approved and come back. And it's, we've actually had a couple of folks come back multiple times. And so as they've looked at tours of duty, they've decided, oh, I think I need to make a move outside the company, and then realize, wait a minute, I miss the culture, I miss the people, and then they want to come back. So I think, it's this concept, at least for me personally, what's so important is we think about the experience from the candidate all the way through alumni and keeping those relationships with folks. And when you're in a high growth startup, people come in often at different stages or different parts of their career journey. And it's wonderful when you have that opportunity for folks to be there at one stage, and then maybe they do want to try something else for a while, but then they come back. It's incredibly meaningful to have that happen. And I think you just have to make it safe and make sure when people leave, they still feel connected and valued and important. And that will compel them to want to come back.
That's so powerful, because a lot of times, like I know myself, like I have thought about venturing outside of an organization, and I've been really afraid to, right? Because I am afraid to burn a bridge, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to come back. And so actually a lot of my mentors have, like, throughout my professional journey, have kind of reassured me that, like, you can do what is best for you in the moment and maintain those relationships to come back. So it's actually really great to hear from you, Susie, that a lot of people do come back even within your organization. Both you and Patti, talked about this notion of needing champions and advocates. And I think that is a whole other conversation that I want to dive into. The first part of that is, like, if someone is going into a new field and they don't have any mentors and they don't have any advocates, where do you start? How do you start building that network. And Susie, if you want to kick us off here, you can.
Well, I think especially assuming a lot of our audience is here in Portland, we have an incredible community here, unlike any other. I've worked for so many global companies and I'm, in other cities, but there's nothing like the community here, and looking for actively engaging in the community, especially, within the discipline that you're getting into, there's tremendous opportunity to meet people who want to help you. And so I think, that's something we often lose sight of is we don't often spend enough time engaging with the local community. That was one idea top of mind. Let me think about this for a second. I don't open it up to others.
Yeah, no problem. I think Denise, I saw you do a thumbs up. If you wanted to chime in with any way that you found is really beneficial to break into a new industry where you don't have existing connections.
Reflecting on Susie's comment about this incredible community that we have in Portland, and it's so reachable and you can really engage in the community in so many different ways. One of the ways that's worked for me successfully is that having an opportunity and doing research to join a board of directors. I can tell you there is such robust opportunities if you have an opportunity or seek an opportunity to join a board of directors. Full disclosure, I'm on the OTRADI and the OBI board of directors, and it's such a wonderful organization, and there's such homework that's done about bringing in a varied skill set to really draw upon the diversity and the skill set in that board. So that is an incredible opportunity to meet others in other fields. And as far as I was on a different board, for example, and was partnered with someone who was amazing, and she was such a great leader and such a great advocate, and she and I were having conversations around what was happening at her organization, and it just happened to be someone who worked at Autodesk. And I sat down with her and we were talking about what was happening at Autodesk, and they had this role open, and they said, I really need to find this person who can do these things. It's kind of eclectic, and do you know anybody? And we went through a list of people. And she mentioned that there was this other organization that they had partnered with, and I knew someone from that organization and thought, wow, that kind of sounds like me. I'm not sure, but maybe. And so those conversations progressed. And so engaging in the community, yes, Susie, 1000%. Attending things like this conversation, connecting with the panelists. Everybody I know here is on LinkedIn. Reach out on LinkedIn. But connecting, if you have an opportunity from a board of directors, is such an incredible opportunity. And I'll actually ask Jenn if she can comment, because Jenn and I connected through several different ways when I was at a different organization. But I know Jenn does amazing work in board of directors and makes a lot of connections that way as well.
Yeah, you hit a nail on the head, because I was going to say such a great way to meet and get connected is to be on a board. And I see someone in the chat said, please talk more about how to go about joining a board. And so my personal experience is finding things that I'm passionate in, because it is excremental to your time, right? So being on a board, you got to go to meetings and be in committees, and sometimes there's a financial commitment or an ask, or connecting people. So it's important to have it be something that you're interested in or passionate about, in my opinion, whether it's your professional career or something personal in your life. And then you will, depending on your level of career, I would say many companies have ambassador boards as well as executive boards. So if you've never been on a board before, a great way to start is by contacting the company, asking if they have positions open, what does it look like to be on their board, who's on their board. I go on websites all the time and see if I know somebody, or if I'm a second on LinkedIn, if it's an organization I'm interested in. So use those resources and tools to help start getting you connected. Once you get connected and you find out more about them, that's really a great way to get started, by going in there. And then Denise hit the nail on the head. I was like, the first thing, like, how do you go about connecting? Attend as many things like this locally as you can. Because as you see in the chat, everyone's throwing their LinkedIn in there. Everyone's talking, introducing themselves. There's somebody who's starting, the Dare to Run. If you want to run for, public office, I saw that in the chat. There's so many ways to get connected if you just open yourself up. Look, she said Dare to Run, they're looking for board members. So these are the exact examples. Thank you. I'll give you your $20 later. These are the exact examples that we're talking about of how you get connected.
Excellent. Patti, I noticed a lot. I think that a lot of that resonated with you. So I'd love to hear more about if you've utilized that method, if you utilized other methods to be able to network in a new field.
Well, I think the great thing is there are so many of these organizations, whether you're interested in technology, medical, there's so many of these meetings you can go to. And I think, OBI hosts some different, happy hours. I think, just starting to go to some of those things, if you're early in your career, just going and meeting people and saying that you want to volunteer, that maybe you can get involved because nonprofit boards are typically quite large. They usually have a lot of people on them. So you don't have to feel like if I went on a board, I'm going to be, put on the spot. It's more you're being part of a community. And, for me, when my kids were in school, I was on the board of the foundation. Those were still great networking places, that are related to, what's going on in your family or what's going on in your life, things that you sports and things you enjoy. Those are all like great experiences that actually I think are also helpful when you're in an interview situation. It makes you look like, you do more than one thing in life, which we all do because most of us are women and we're doing multitasking constantly, doing lots of things. But, it gives you some leadership experience and another great source for mentors. The other thing I just wanted to add on the whole mentor subject is that, if you really meet someone you like, what I found is that there's people when they really take ownership for then trying to do follow-ups with you. Like if they're wanting to talk to me and get to know me more, if they're going to pass that to me and expect me to organize all the future meetings, it's just not going to happen. And so, I would just suggest that, when you think you meet someone up front and say, gee, I'd love to be able to talk to you a couple times over this next 6 months, you can do that. I think we're open for it if you can organize it and not leave it to us to try to manage all of that.
Sure. I know that when people have connected with me and then they've taken ownership to do a follow-up to say like, hey, here's what we talked about last time. Here's what I've gone and done. And here's some new obstacles I'm running into, or here's things that worked and things that didn't. It actually makes me feel like really much more connected and really much more vested in their journey. And so we've done many like follow-up conversations. And like, I think actually the richness of connections is really helpful when you have those follow-up conversations, because oftentimes, when you're trying to break into a field, even when someone gives you a warm intro, if they give you a warm intro to 5 people, maybe only one of them works out, right? But if you tell that person, hey, this connection worked really well because of this, this, and this, then they probably have other people just like that they can connect you with if you refine exactly what works and what doesn't for you. And so, yeah, I think that's phenomenal. One other thing that I wanted to dive into is that not all mentors are good mentors, right? Like we've all had mentors that we thought like, this is great. But when we get into it, there are some who are going to advocate for us, who are going to champion us, who are going to be there for the progression and the journey. And there are also those that like there's some level of like toxicity when it comes to a mentorship, and they don't see you as their equal, and they're unwilling to open up opportunities that maybe doesn't come from them. And so what I would really love to discuss with you all is, if you've had a really good mentor, what does that mentorship relationship look like? Because too often with women, right, we have an ability and a propensity to be taken advantage of, especially when we're working in male-dominated fields. And so I'd love to hear from you all. What does a good mentor relationship look like?
I'll jump in if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking a lot about this. I've recently had the opportunity to attend a women executive retreat, and just the power we have as women to be able to mentor and advocate for each other. So I've been thinking a lot about this. And in all honesty, a couple of the best mentors in my life have been men. And one was early in my career, the CFO that encouraged me to take a lateral move. And what made that so meaningful to me is that he was sincerely invested in me and my success of what I wanted, not some vision of what he thought I should do. It was getting to know me and my strengths and what I wanted, and being willing to give me some really tough feedback of, well, Susie, you say you want this, but it doesn't seem like you're willing to do the work. Being able to be that raw and real with me, phenomenal, just phenomenal experience. I will say I've had some amazing women mentors, but I've also had some who have been really competitive with me. And in that they had to work so hard to get to their level that, you know what, I'm going to have to pay my dues in the same way. And that's just the way the world works. And what a disservice to each other. I feel like we have to be advocating and championing each other and not trying to bring each other down. We have to be looking to lifting each other up. So I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and just, and how I apply that to my mentoring of others. But just for what it's worth, I've had some incredible male mentors and female, but I think it honestly comes down to really valuing us and what our success is, and being able to truly champion us.
That was really powerful, Susie. Do others have any experience with a good mentor and what that looked like?
Yeah, I can give an example of also a male mentor. And for me, this is how they became my mentor. Because a lot of times people are like, how does someone become your mentor? How do you even know if they're good or not? Do you just ask them? What happens? And this was a person on the leadership team, and I was in the same space as them, not at the same level as them. And they stopped in the middle of a meeting during the middle of a topic and said, Jen, what do you think? Which gave me the opportunity to raise my voice, to speak up. And so I hunted that person down after the meeting and thanked them, because they catapulted me into a space where I had a seat at the table, if you want to call it that, but I didn't really have a way to create space for me in the role that I was in at the time. And so I said, can we meet on a regular basis? I didn't say, can you be my mentor? I just said, I love the way you think. I really think I could learn a lot from you. Can we meet on a regular basis? And we did. That was probably 8 years ago. This person has moved on to a bunch of other things, doesn't even live anywhere near here. I still connect with them on a regular basis. Anytime I am thinking about, ooh, do I want to apply for a new job, or I want to pivot this, or I need some advice. And the one thing that, just like Susie said, really valuing me as a person and being tough on me, saying, if you're going to ask me for feedback, are you truly open to hearing what I'm going to say to you? And that was something that was really important to me. And I mentor women of color specifically now, and seek them out within my organization to help elevate them and bring them into rooms they would normally not be in. And that's one thing I ask them too, is, are you open to, I will say yes to be your mentor if you're open to truly receiving feedback and, making the changes. So I think it's developing and building that relationship is really important.
And what I'm hearing from both of what you've said is that a real mentor doesn't just, praise, or it doesn't just support you, but also actively takes a hand in putting you in positions that you wouldn't normally be in. So it's not just passively talking about opportunities that you can get, is what I'm hearing. Denise and Patti, have you had similar experiences? Have you had different experiences with great mentors?
Let's see. Yeah, I've had several great mentors, especially because being in technology fields, first of all, you're in a situation where, really only about 10 or 20% of the people are women. So, if you could find a great male mentor, they're going to have that opportunity to let you in a little bit more. And, personally, I had some pretty traumatic experiences with some women, early on. And I think maybe because they were the ones that really blazed the trail first, and they were maybe not always really had your best interest at heart. I remember when I was trying to raise money for the first company, where a woman took me aside and said, I just want to tell you, you're never going to be able to raise this money. And I'm telling you this as a friend, and not a friend, but, as a mentor. And, I just don't want to see you, waste your time. And I remember, thinking, what, I'm going to raise that money. and it turned out that I did. I actually raised $43 million in that round, but that kind of help you don't need, right? Somebody being negative. And, I think you do need someone that can give you coaching and say, hey, this is how you can be more effective. But to tell you you're just not going to be able to do something, that's pretty horrifying. I just think there are ways you can do that. And you need to look for things in mentors that can give you honest feedback, but constructive, something you can do something with. I guess maybe I did do something with it because I got so furious at her that it's kind of a chore. But anyway, I just think that, really watching for that. And it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman. I think these days women are so much more welcoming. I mean, I always try to help other women entrepreneurs. I love that there are, other women here in the OBI. So I think it's not as bad as it used to be, but, you should really, hopefully you can be gender agnostic in that side.
Yeah, absolutely. Patti, what you said really, I was like thinking about my own journey within venture capital, and what you said really resonated with me. When I first brought up this, I had cultivated a series of mentors within venture capital, and I had gone to them with this idea of joining a group and being able to create Black Founders Matter, which is the fund that I run. And one of my mentors immediately said, like, that's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be able to do that. Don't waste your time on it. Whereas another one said, like, hey, if you want to do this, here are maybe some of the skills you should think about cultivating. Here are maybe some of the relationships you want to do. I think it'll be difficult, but here are also the resources to be able to do that. And also, would you like me to be on some calls where I can also help to like navigate relationships that I have access to, right? And so just in that, like illustrating exactly what you said, Patti, is that like some mentors who actually aren't great mentors will just shut it down. But even if something is difficult, a mentor can advocate. A mentor, as Jenn was saying, put you in the room so that you have access and a different vantage point. And very much like Susie was saying, then like help you by championing your journey and your vision and prioritizing your voice. So I just think everything that you said was absolutely illustrated in my own life when it comes to good and poor mentorship. Denise, do you have any other? Oh yeah, go ahead.
It's just, I just saw the recent statistic this last week that only 2% of venture capital goes to women founders. Mm-hmm. So, that is an industry that really needs change. So I just want to put that out there, and I hope that will really happen because, that's just an unacceptable statistic. Absolutely. And it's gotten worse the last 2 years.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I will say one thing, and Denise, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this as well. But, it's really actually quite sad to hear that all three of you that have talked so far have had some negative experiences with other women, right? Because we as a community have so much strength and so much power if we work together and uplift one another. And I think you're right, Patti, that times have definitely changed and there's much more of a focus on not just conforming to a male-dominated industry and then just closing the door behind you, but really rather being more welcoming so that we can change some of the culture and being able to bring our organic strengths and power to be able to support one another. So I wanted to call that out. And Denise, I wanted to hear your thoughts on who's a good mentor and what experiences you've had.
Yeah, it's to the conversation around male mentor, female mentor. I've had successes and failures with both. I will say that sometimes, in my point of view, a mentor isn't really classified as a mentor. I never even asked, right? So, quick story, back to Jenn at Genentech. There's an individual, his name's Tim Layton, and he is a masterful government affairs person, and I adore him so much and just appreciate his conversation. And he helped me so much when I started down this journey of policy and testifying in Olympia and testifying in Salem. And he listened to ideas and gave me feedback. And it felt like a very symbiotic relationship. We had lots of conversation and he helped light a fire. And I think back to the conversation we had earlier around communicating and just saying what you want and saying what to do, right? So he actually helped me find my passion around policy and all of that. And I applied to a program called Emerge Oregon, which is a nonprofit that takes, you apply for self-identifying women and Democratic women, how to teach them and run for office. And I got into that program and I successfully completed that program. I'm working alongside another part of the conversation, alongside of their government affairs team in Autodesk. Though I'm not the government affairs person, I found a lot of passion around it and I'm helping in projects there. And we don't talk about our success as much as we should. And I'll just say that 2 weeks ago, I actually was on a call with Secretary Buttigieg and the CEO of our organization, and was able to work my way through community and into a group. And we found ourselves in a situation where I got to sit on a call and be actively staffing our CEO with a call with the Secretary of Transportation. And I thought to myself, wow, wouldn't Tim be proud of me now? I got my chops from Tim. So I don't think Tim even realized that he was this incredible mentor to me and just helped me find a passion and light a fire for me. So I'll just say that if there's an opportunity to do that, and then to give back as well. So somebody made a comment in the chat about having something to give back to your mentor as well. Tim and I had many conversations around changing what it would look like in policy and changing how to approach a legislator. And we got to try pilots and do several things that were really successful because he was open to my ideas as well. So I got to give him ideas on how to maybe change our standard approach to government affairs. So always have something to give back as well, right? So I appreciate the conversation around this. It's so powerful to have community and connections and mentors outside of your own work that you do to bring yourself different ideas and to bring those to bear as well.
Absolutely. I think that was really well said. And actually, while the four of you were talking, I know that Heather and Hazel put some links in the chat for different groups that you can join. I know that OBI is hosting some in-person networking events. So those are definitely, a lot of you in the chat have been asking, how do you pivot into a new industry? How do you get resources? How do you build up that initial network? A lot of these events are places to go. You know, I remember, you all know that venture capital is really difficult to get in. And I came into it without any network and actually without like much knowledge prior to it of how to do it. And attending a ton of these events, you know, it's kind of like a numbers game, right? Where you have to attend a ton of events because you never know where you're going to meet the best mentors. And as we've kind of talked about, like some connections might be great, some connections not so much. And so you really have to put yourself out there and take ownership, as Patti mentioned, of that follow-up to be able to cultivate those relationships over a longer period of time. That way you can build up those relationships so that people can start advocating for you and putting you in positions that you wouldn't normally have access to. I wanted to ask you all, I know that we could probably talk for hours and hours, and I feel like I'm learning so much here as a moderator. So thank you all so much. I would love to know if we could do like a quick last question. If there was a tip that you could have given yourself at the beginning of your career, knowing what you know now, to all of the women that have joined us today, what is the number one tip that you would have given yourself? And anyone can start. I know this is a curveball here.
It has served me incredibly well to say yes to every opportunity that's come my way, every project. You know, it's really served me well to do that. And I know that can maybe feel, for some might think, well, I don't have time. How am I going to balance it all? And I think you do have to make sure you're thoughtful about how much you put on your plate. But I've always found when there was a project that came my way or something that I was asked to lead, saying yes served me incredibly well. And it led me to something else I didn't quite know even was going to exist, just by saying yes to some of those opportunities. And some at the time felt crazy. It's like, why would I do that? And later I was so glad I did.
Yeah, Susie, I feel the same way. And I would add on to that, what I said earlier is ask. Take the risk and ask for something. Ask, because they can't tell you yes. You can't get a yes back too if you don't ask. So I wish I would have asked more in my earlier career. I ask all the time now. They're tired. They see me coming. They're like, yes, Jen, we know. But that's, right. They get it and they know I'm coming and they know I'm serious and they know what I want. When I was younger, I didn't take those risks, or I didn't think I was allowed to take those risks. So give yourself permission.
Yeah, I really love that, Jen, because I feel the same thing. If I look back, I would say take more risks. You always kind of felt like you had to do everything, you had to do it all well, it's like, just take some things where you might fail, because those are the ones you end up learning the most from. And, I think just really getting out there a little bit more, would be a lot better. I mean, I think don't be afraid to do that.
Those are all so perfect, from saying yes, Susie, to Jenn, ask, and Patti, take the risk. They all kind of go together. And I just, yes to all of those things. I guess D, all of the above to all those things, right? Saying yes, and definitely taking a risk. I know there's so many people on the call that I don't know, but there's so many that I do know. And I consider myself a calculated risk taker. I am a boxer, so there's some of that too, right? So calculated risk for sure. And then saying yes and asking. I've made so many errors early in my career just by not asking. Just ask. It's okay to ask. And if it's not okay to ask, then there's something else. I will tag on just something that I wish I would have done earlier was, I consider myself a pretty good listener. I wish I would have listened a little bit more, and to always seek understanding, right? Seek understanding, listen a little bit more, but make the ask, take the risk, and say yes. I think those are all very valid for me anyway. I felt all of those when everyone made those comments.
I love all of those tips, and I'm just going to put it out there in the spirit of asking to OBI. I feel like these 4 women are such incredible leaders and just so inspirational. We should maybe have them come on and do another session, because I feel like the time has flown by. We've been here for almost an hour, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface on all of your knowledge and expertise. And so I just really want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to hand it back to Renee. As Renee is closing out the session, if the 4 of you, if there are any other resources that you want to share, or any of your LinkedIn profiles that you want to share, please put those in the chat. But I'm looking forward to being able to hopefully talk with each one of you individually and collectively again. Renee, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, you are right. The time flew by. I can't even believe it. It's already almost the top of the hour. Wow, what an outstanding discussion. And I know that we all took away a lot of thought-provoking words of wisdom. Hearing about all your experiences was just super valuable. So thank you for everyone for registering. Thank you for our amazing panel. Thank you to Cambia Health Solutions for supporting this event. And through your leadership, we can help break the bias that women can face and work toward a gender equal world. So I just want to let you all know this program has been recorded, and I'll send a link to the recording tomorrow. So watch your emails for that, and you can rewatch, you can share with your friends. We appreciate the support of the OBI. We appreciate you all being here. And yes, let's do a part 2. I'd love it. So everybody go forth and have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week. Thank you for being here, and we'll say goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.